Alrighty, hey guys, I am gearing up here for another Golf Clash video, and this one's going to focus on just kind of simplify things, kind of give you an introduction to Golf Clash in general, and just kind of break down the ring guide. So first off, let's take a look at some of these clubs just to kind of go over things. So when you look at, for instance, a driver, so let's take a look at Thor's hammer. You see accuracy being 64 here. Now, what does that tell us? It basically says that, actually, let me just jump over to a ring guide real quick, and I'll tell you exactly what that shows you. So here you want to go to the closest accuracy number. In this case, it is 65. Now, the accuracy we were just looking at was 64. So here you see 65 being 1.7 per ring and 60 accuracy being 1.8 per ring. Now, since it was 64, technically the accuracy number is going to be 1.72 per ring. But if you play it right at about 1.7, it's going to get you in the ballpark, close enough for all purposes. And you see, as you go out on that 1.5 or 1.7 number, 2 rings, is just double that, 3.4. 3 rings is triple that, 1.7 times 3, 5.1. Coincidentally, 4 rings is going to do the same thing, 6.8. And then 8.5 would be, 1.7 times 5. So you look at the outer ring on your bullseye, which is the white ring. In fact, these are actually color-coded for you as well. So your bullseye is the yellow ring. The second ring is red. Your third ring is a blue ring. And your fourth ring is what I like to kind of refer to as the clear ring. So it's whatever basically surface you're on, and I guess it's denoted as green here because it's see-through and you can see it as green on your screen. And white is going to be your outer ring. So now that you've seen that, looking at this Thor's hammer here, you can see accuracy is 64. So if you have that ring guide, you are good to go for basically everything. Now, let's break this down simply, just in case you're not sure what's going on here. But every 5 accuracy is 0.1 different. So when you look at something that's 100% accuracy, it is 1 yard per ring or mile per hour per ring. And 5 accuracy lower is going to dip it to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, so forth. So that's the way that I use. If I know so the way that I use to just kind of estimate things is I always remember 100 being 1, and I always remember 50 being 2. So I'll just basically, in my head, if I see something that's, 70, for example, then I'll just start at 50 being 2, and then just be like, 1.9, 1.8 is going to be 60, and then 1.7, 1.6 will be 70. So that's how I kind of quickly come up with that. And so that's that for the basics to the wind guide as to how rings are actually working. And then the way that I like to do it is more of, I only look at the one ring method, and then I'll just, use division, like quick calculation division in my head off that one ring number. So, for instance, if I'm looking at a 5 wind, and, let's just take Thor's hammer for an example again. So this is 1.7 was the number that we just said will roughly get you there. And if I'm looking at a 5 wind off the tee, then I'm going to know that it's, in between 2 and 3 rings, but very close to 3 for a 5 wind, because 3 is 5.1, 2 is 3.4, and it falls in between that 2 to 3 ring, almost to the 3. So, I'll play it more visually, like basically exactly 3 rings in that scenario. So, keeping all that in mind, let's just take a look at a couple more clubs here. Here's a Kingfisher, accuracy 88. So you're going to be looking at kind of 1.2 per ring there. Whereas here's the Thorn, which is, closer to the 50 number. So again, like the little trick that I use that's fast is I'll start at 50 and say, 2.0. And then 1.9 is going to be 55. And then it falls in between there, so it's going to be basically like 1.86, 1.87, like somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's just kind of like the quick guide that I use to figuring out what I'm looking at in terms of ring calculations. And let's just go ahead and jump in a couple holes here. See if I can't grab things on my bag. I'm going to take Thor's. And let's just take a look at, real quick, just my bag in general. So we've already gone over Thor's hammer. We said that this is 64 accuracy, which is basically 1.7. It's going to be my ring adjustment for that club. Of course, Sniper, 100% accuracy. It's going to be 1.0. It's going to be a really nice club for us. Same with Backbone. Backbone 9, it's missing a little bit of accuracy, but it's still very accurate as well. So working from that, 100 being 1, 95 being 1.1, working back that way, it's going to be 1.4 per ring here for this club, basically. It's going to get you a nice estimation. Now, it's technically like 1.36 or something, but if you use 1.4, you're good for all purposes, getting in the ballpark. And again, we've already talked about Thorn here. It's going to play kind of close to 2, very close, like 1.87-ish, give or take. Endbringer, of course, my accuracy on this is right on 80 as well, so that is also 1.4. So this and Backbone almost essentially have the exact accuracy. They're 3 different, but for all intensive purposes, the rings are going to be the same size. The rough iron and the sand wedge are a little bit different with the way that they work. You might want to check out my so I have a whole I have a guide for kind of playing these. It's titled with it has sand wedge, and rough iron in the title. And I do a very good job of kind of, talking about these clubs in general, because they're the only clubs in your golf bag that don't have min distances. Those are the only 3. Everything else has min distances, whereas all the other clubs have min and max. And what that means is there's always a club that you can go down to on all the other clubs in the game on that top level. So the driver, it'll max out at a certain number, but then as soon as you get to min distance, it's going to go into Sniper, whereas Sniper is going to kind of max out at the driver, and then it's going to min out close to the long iron, and vice versa. But when you get to this bottom line of cards here, the Endbringer doesn't have a max distance. You can basically pull it down to 0 and basically hit it virtually nothing. So I put together a guide for you guys to basically simplify things as to estimating distances. And like I mentioned, you can find that if you search for, it's the only video that I have on YouTube that has sand wedge, and rough iron in the title. So you can find it that way by doing a search. And because everything covered in that, I'm going to basically just not really get into. I don't want to get into too specific for you guys. But keep in mind, so these accuracy numbers here, these are all based on max club distances. So this like 1.0 number, for instance, is going to be considered a max distance number. The max distance number is basically the point where you drag the shot. And like I just mentioned about switching between the clubs, it's going to be the point that it goes red right before it switches up to driver, for instance, is going to be your max sniper distance. And that is going to be based on 1.0. And just from, trial and error method, I've kind of deciphered that, a mid-range sniper, for example, it's going to play more like 1.15, like kind of in between 1.1, 1.2, kind of plays halfway in between there. So like a mid-distance sniper is going to play like 1.15 per ring, whereas the min distance, which that means that it's going to be closer to the long iron, like my back, like right when it's going to red, right before it switches to backbone, that distance is going to be 1.3 per ring. So that's that club for you. What I've noticed with Thor hammer, for example, the max distance is 1.7. The mid club distance for this club is roughly 2.0. And the min distance, right before it's about to switch to sniper, is close to 2.25 for that club. And backbone, I'm not 100% sure. I kind of go off a feel for this one. So you see my accuracy, 82. I think it's kind of like 1.4 for the max. I know is pretty accurate. Mid, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it might be around 1.8 or so. And then the min distance is somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 2.2 for this club. So I'm not entirely sure on that one. Just because I haven't really, tried to really get it down to an exact science on that club to, virtually figure out the whole odds and ends of that one. But Thorn here, this one I know pretty well. And this Thorn here is about 1.87, like I was mentioning. And the mid-distance number is going to be more like 2.8-ish or so. Would be a nice estimation for you guys. And then the min distance right before it goes to the wedge is going to be more like, 3.7 or so. So that'll kind of get you in, for the most part, it'll get you in the ballpark, general ballpark. Other factors to include all the time are basically elevation. So there's certain holes that are like, hitting uphill to an uphill target, and I'll just play it, more spot on like 4.0 for a min club number. And same for, mid club that I just mentioned was kind of like 2.8. Well, maybe I'll play it like 3.0 if it's like a little uphill, for example. And the opposite is true. If you're ever going to like a downhill target, you're going to need to kind of take off those numbers. So, I might play it more like 1.7, for example, for kind of like a min, which would make like a max number, I mean. And then for my min, I might play it, 3.5, 3.4, somewhere in there. I just kind of scale the numbers. So elevation is important to think about in this game. And I'll kind of go over elevation a little bit. I just wanted to kind of briefly show you this in the bag. And, I just kind of wanted to talk about this. It's just kind of a basic guide to Golf Clash here. And here you see, all the tours here are set up. Tour 1, Tour 2, Tour 3, Tour 4, all the way to Tour 11. And they all have a certain amount of trophies to them that can be achieved. And you see once it says, like, for example, 100 out of 100, those are 100 trophies. Once you have 100 trophies in that category, no more can be won. So I can lose the the trophies. For example, if I go in here and play, in fact, I am going to jump in and at least do, 1 or 2 live matches. Now, it's probably going to be against a replay. And a replay is defined as somebody that already shot their score on this hole and went to shootout, and I'm basically playing against them. So what you'll see typically is, what's the average case for going to shootout, which is going to be, for a par 5, it's going to be eagle on a par 5, birdie on a par 4, and, and then go to shootout. So let's look at this hole. This is a hole that you want to get the eagle on because it's a par 5 like I was mentioning. And let's talk a little bit about the ring system. So now you can physically see the bullseye here. As you can see all the colors on the bullseye, just as I was just mentioning earlier in the video. And I mentioned that Thor's hammer, you consider all your tee shots being at max club for the most part. So let's put on a basic ball here. I'm going to go at this with basic ball, and you see, that red line is what I was mentioning, which is your max distance number. And you can drag up like this, and I'm just kind of pulling this thing forward just so I can see where my max power will be. So you see where that bullseye maxes out at, that's the maximum that I can land the ball at. But it is downwind, so you need to visualize another, ring to 2 rings where that ball will actually land. So with that being said, you want to always, wherever you're aiming, make sure that that target's kind of good and that you're setting it up in the fairway or whatever. And just give it a rip down there. And let's see if we can't get to approach here and talk more about these rings. So the method that I like to use for the ring method is I like to rotate the screen. So when I'm setting up to do my rings, play my rings into shots here, and we're going to do this more probably, entry level. I'm not going to go full power here or anything like that. We're just going to kind of lay up, just kind of like this guy in the video. And I'll just focus on playing the rings here for you guys. So my preferred method to playing the rings is to rotate the screen. It makes it so much easier for me when I pull it straight up or pull it straight down. So what I do is I either point my wind up to, I either point it up or I point it down, depending on, which way looks like it's easier. And in this case, it doesn't really matter. But if there's ever change in elevation, for example, that bunker, now you can see the perspective. The only good place for me to basically see the bullseye still is doing it this way. So keep that in mind when you're doing your ring adjustments. But as you can see, this one's none too bad. And if I was going to play this ring, we talked about sniper, it's 1.0 at max. So I will go 1.6-ish rings. And then I will put this in the center of the bullseye, go for perfect ball. And it should, land where I intended it to aim and then run out based on, that landing zone. So keep that in mind when you're doing your ring adjustments. My preferred method is to rotate the screen like that at all times. I always either point the wind straight up or straight down. And then either pull straight up on the screen or straight down. It just helps me to be precise. That's one of the biggest keys to this game is precision. So many shots are set up to be precise. Like, look at this guy's target, for example. He's hitting it in between a bunker where he has less than a ring of margin of error. So when you're making your ring adjustment, for example, you want to make sure that you're spot on with those adjustments so you can pull the shot off still. So let's take a look at this. and we will talk a little bit more about the ring method. So here we talked about thorn as to how min distance is close to 3.7, for example, as an estimation. That's right on this red line. This is the point where 3.7 is effect. The point where the other number, the 1 point whatever, 1.89, is right here. So I'm in between here, more towards min club here, because you can see that this is where min club is, and I'm just coming ever so slightly up on this. So you are going to see me play this basically on min club numbers, and I'm going to go about half a ring, a little more than half a ring here, and not much more. And of course I hit a great ball, so assuming I'm going to come out to the right and be right to the right of the hole. And there you see it. We are going to be going to Shootout. And we will talk about the ring just a little bit more in depth on the Shootout as well. And like I mentioned, especially when you're in min club distance like that, elevation doesn't come in to play very much. It's more of like a max club thing where your elevation becomes really crucial. So, for the most part, even if I was shooting to a downhill target, uphill target, kind of close to min distance, not much is going to be changed with those numbers. So you could basically write those numbers down. And like I said, if you would like to calculate those, if you need me to kind of generate some numbers for you, feel free to reach out to me. It looks like we're not going to get to the shootouts. Wasn't paying attention there, but nothing good from that pin chest. We are going to jump in one more game here and just kind of briefly go over everything again. We will switch tours up for you guys, get a couple different wins. Let's go to tour 5 here. Actually, let's go to tour 6. This is a big tour that a lot of guys talk about having problems, so I will go to this one. And the wins are going to be a little bit higher the higher up in the tours that you go. So once you max a tour and get to the next one, the wins are going to gradually increase from tour to tour. So we were on 3 there where we were seeing 2, 3, 1 mile per hour winds. Well, in this tour it's going to be more like 2 to 10 miles per hour. There's actually, in tour 6, you can actually get higher than 10 miles per hour. So it could be any range in between there for this tour. And again, I'm going to try to play this shot more based off the ring system. And I got to try to avoid getting beat because I'm not going to pull out a Titan ball. Okay, good. He's going that way. So I was worried about, losing this hole to eagle because I wasn't going to pull out a Titan here. I'm just going to go at this with basic ball. We are going to talk a little bit about the rings again. And I want to give you guys a couple tricks. First off, I want to talk about one of the tricks in this video. It's something that I, from time to time I forget. It's not something that I do very often, but let me just show you this. Well, first off, you see that the wind is 8 miles per hour. I'm gonna try to, put max power here and just kind of see where. So remember we said 1.7 per ring and 5 rings was 8.5. So look at the bullseye, look at the white ring, and you can see 8 miles per hour is going to be into the rough. So I can't go max power here. So one of the tricks that I really recommend doing is if you pull back on max here, let's just pull back, say, 2 rings, just to be on the cautious side. Watch how much slower, look how slow this arrow is moving when you do this. So it really lets you hone in and hit perfect ball. And there you're seeing it still go long there. I didn't pull back enough to keep that in the fairway. And this kind of touches a little bit on what I was mentioning about shooting to downward targets. So when you're shooting downhill like we just were there, you see the ball carry much more farther than the ring because I only pulled back like a ring or two, which should have been enough for an 8 wind. So this is kind of reinforcing that thing I was talking about before, which was elevation, how it can come and be like a critical part of this game. You're seeing it firsthand on that shot, because pulling back 2 rings there, as you could see where I was setting up, 5 rings was going to be very close to the rough. I pulled back 2 rings, which means, I had like 7 rings of clearance, and it still wasn't enough for that shot. So here you kind of see me short side myself, and now I'm just going to have to kind of beat it down this way towards the end of the fairway down here. So let's talk about this with the sniper here, where you're going to be more at max club. And like I mentioned, when I'm playing rings, I am either putting it straight up or straight down, and I'm just going to pull straight up 5 rings, keep going, another 5, keep going, another 2. So there's 12 rings for a 12 mile per hour wind. I'm basically at max club, and I'm just playing the rings, and just laying up to the front end of the fairway here, letting it run out, and then take my 3rd shot from there. And we're just going to be gearing up for a shootout here, and hopefully this wind guide here is making some sense to you. If you need a little bit more detailed information, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll do the best that I can to explain things a little bit more clearly. But for the bulk of this video, I feel like we've covered a lot of the basic ring structure for just playing your rings. And like I said, I'm very systematic with my approach. So let's look at what I would do for a setup. So first things first, I find max club. Next, I find min club. I do this every time. This is like my basic setup. So that way, wherever my target is, I figure out, am I going to use a min club or am I going to use a max club number? And here you're seeing I am going to use a max club number. So I like to use a little bit of backspin here, not too much, as you can see, as I'm pulling back and it starts to kind of backtrack off. So I'm going to use more of my max club number here, and I'm going to, like I just mentioned, set up to where I'm pulling straight down, 6 rings basically, 5.7. And then in addition to that, I'm going to hit this mega curl here just to kind of shoot it down over towards the hole as well. One of the things that I want you to be cautious of when you're doing your adjustments there, you see I'm kind of bailing out long because I know that I can, for instance, but if I pull back too far, I can bring the bunker into play. So you're seeing me be extra cautious there, and I want you guys to also have that same kind of mindset, which is to know where your trouble is and know where you can bail out of trouble. And let me just zoom out here real quick for you. The bunker was my trouble, the rough is my trouble, and I just basically bail out and just curve it along this green as opposed to playing super aggressive there. So that's one of the things that I just want you guys to be proactive in protecting yourself from putting it in spots where you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. And if you do choose to go for dunk shots, oh wow. I was just a little cavalier with that dunk there. No big deal. If you are going to go for dunk shots like that, just make sure that you pull your shot arrow right into the center of the the shot circle that they give you there for your shot there. And if anything, you want to be a little long with it. You can be a little bit on the long side, not much. You have to keep it still in that center circle, but try to avoid putting it on the front edge, because as you can see, the pin gets in the way a little long, but as you can see, the hole didn't get in the way short. So you want to be a little careful when you go for those. But aside from that, I think, I kind of covered everything with that I wanted to kind of go over here for a basic wind guide here. And just know that, 1 mile per hour of wind is essentially equivalent to, every number that you see on that guide, like the ring guide, all those accuracy numbers, is equivalent to whatever you're seeing for that. That's a basic, when you look at this chart here, these are basically equivalent to, if it says 2 on there, it's essentially equivalent to 2 miles per hour of wind. So keep that in mind. There's going to be, you always have to keep in mind, is it min club? Is it mid club? Is it max club? So all this, I just want to reiterate here that this whole chart that we're looking at here is for max only. These are for max numbers only. So, and the way that, min numbers are calculated vary from club to club. So that's the reason that you don't see like a chart for that, because there's no set chart. The best way to do it is, trial and error and just come up with all of them. I think there's also this other app, it's called Golf Caddy, that you can try to check out. Caddy Club or something. I'm not really sure. I don't really use it. I've always just kind of trial and errored myself. Everything that I've done has been, for the most part, self-taught. So there's never been like a set method for anything that I do, like counting rings or any of that. It was just kind of generated via trial and error and just kind of winging it is kind of the method that I've always grown to use. So anyway, I hope you find this tutorial video useful. If you like it, feel free to subscribe to my content and my page, and feel free to share this, or hit the thumbs up button if you like the content. And aside from that, I just want you guys to know that I'm here to help you guys. Put out a mission statement for you guys, and anything that I can do to basically help you succeed is kind of what a lot of my content is geared towards. So you'll see a lot of my guides. I'm not going to be keeping any like trade secrets from you guys. Like, stuff that I know comes up on my page. There's times where there's just times and place for certain things, so you'll see like bits and pieces of stuff throughout every video. I can't just cram everything into one video and talk about everything, but collectively, if you use a lot of my guides and put them together, you'll see that I'm here to help you guys and make sure that you guys lower your scores and everything that you want to get out of Golf Clash. I'm trying to give you the tools and tips that you need to succeed. Just a little brief background on me. I've been playing this game since Easter of last year. So I am pretty seasoned in this game, a lot wiser than I was when I started this game. When I first started this game, I was young, naive, dumb. And now I'm, a lot wiser, and I'm still dumb. I still play this game pretty stupidly, but for the most part, I can get you, I just take risks a lot of the time, do unnecessary shots. I don't really care about tournament scores or anything like that. So you'll see a lot of my shots just be kind of off the wall sometimes, because I'd rather get the hole-in-one than, I'd rather risk it and go for the hole-in-one, for example, as opposed to, playing it up safe and making sure I get in my birdie and not parring, stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm here to help you guys, and I'm not going to set you up with shots that I don't think you can execute. So if you look at some of my tournament guides, I'm going to set you up to succeed by using high accuracy clubs and making sure that I'm hitting shots that I feel comfortable that you guys can pull off. So I'm never going to set you up with, and that goes for if you see me do a hook on a drive in one of my tournament guides or wherever, it's because I feel like you can pull this shot off. So if you're unsure of the technique, feel free to reach out to me about something that I might do. I'll do the best that I can to answer your questions. Aside from that, feel free to explore the game to the best of your ability as well. If you see me do something, for example, in like a tournament guide, because we are in tournament week this week. So if you see me do something in one of the guides and you don't pull it off in your round, well, you can try to go to Tour 8 and match, find that hole, and later today, and, hopefully hone in and get a second attempt at it and be able to execute it. So, I'm here to help you guys out. So anything you guys need, let me know. And good luck out there. Hopefully I run out to you guys on the course. So let me know if you need anything. And like I said before, feel free to check out all my content or share anything that you find, pertinent to the game. If you think your friends can use some help, feel free to share it and all that good stuff. So see you guys out there.